Welcome to a very special episode of Carman's Crypt. I'm your host, and tonight I come to you not with a tale of terror, but with an announcement that I hope will thrill you just as much. As many of you loyal listeners know, we've been hard at work crafting the spine-chilling stories that will make up Season 3 of Carman's Crypt. We're diving deep into new horrors, exploring fresh nightmares, and polishing each tale until it gleams like a perfectly preserved bone in moonlight. But great horror takes time, like a fine wine aging in a forgotten cellar, or a corpse slowly decomposing in the perfect conditions of our beloved crypt. These stories need just a little more time to reach their full, terrifying potential. So while we put the finishing touches on the horrors that await you in Season 3, we have a very special treat for both our longtime devotees and any brave soul who might be new to our twisted family. Tonight we're presenting a compilation of my top 5 stories from Season 2. 5 bone-chilling tales, 5 nightmare-inducing stories, each a carefully moment crafted of dread. Whether you are revisiting these stories or experiencing them for the first time, consider this your invitation to descend once more into the darkness. From the shadows that lurk in small towns to the creatures that hide in plain sight, Season 2 delivered horror that lingered long after the final credits rolled. So dim the lights and lock the doors. The best horrors are worth waiting for. Welcome, restless souls, to Carman's Crypt. I'm Carman Carrion, keeper of forgotten tales and curator of nightmares. You've wandered into my domain, where each week I unearth a fresh horror from the depths of human imagination. In these darkened halls, stories wait like hungry shadows. Each tale we've collected whispers of terrors both ancient and new. From crumbling mansions where something skitters behind the walls, to that strange text message you received at 3 a.m. from a number that shouldn't exist. So gather close. The candles are lit. The shadows grow long, and the witching hour is upon us. Are you prepared to face what lurks in the darkest recesses of Carman's Crypt? Lock your doors, still your nerves, and remember, here, every fear comes to life. This is Carman's Crypt. Your sanctuary of scares awaits. Welcome, restless souls, to Carman's Crypt. I'm Carman Carrion, keeper of forgotten tales and curator of nightmares. You've wandered into my domain, where each week I unearth a fresh horror from the depths of human imagination. In these darkened halls, stories wait like hungry shadows. Each tale we've collected whispers of terrors both ancient and new. From crumbling mansions where something skitters behind the walls, to that strange text message you received at 3 a.m. from a number that shouldn't exist. So gather close. The candles are lit. The shadows grow long, and the witching hour is upon us. Are you prepared to face what lurks in the darkest recesses of Carman's Crypt? Lock your doors, still your nerves, and remember, here, every fear comes to life. This is Carman's Crypt. Your sanctuary of scares awaits. Hey dude, you have to promise you won't think I'm crazy when I tell you this story. Like, seriously, promise. Because I know how it sounds, and 6 months ago I would have laughed at someone telling me the same thing. But I swear on my mom's life, every word of this actually happened. You know how everyone's always posting those perfect nature shots on Instagram? The golden hour lighting, the misty forest paths, all that aesthetic stuff that gets a million likes? Well, here in Bella Vista, where we've got like 100 miles of world-class mountain bike trails threading through the Ozark Hills, there's this one section where people are getting way more than they bargained for in their photos. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. See, living in Bella Vista, bicycling isn't just something you do on weekends. It's basically a religion. We've got the Back 40, Little Sugar, Blowing Springs, all these epic trail systems that people drive from across the country to ride. The trails here are so good that we're literally on the map as one of the top mountain biking destinations in America. So when I say everyone bikes here, I mean everyone. Your neighbor, your teacher, that kid from chemistry class, the guy who works at the grocery store. They all have $3,000 bikes and know the difference between flow trails and technical single track. Which is why what happened on the old Riverside Connector Trail is so weird. This isn't some random path through the woods. This is part of our world-renowned trail network. It connects the Back 40 system to the Greenway, winds through deep hardwood forest with limestone bluffs and creek crossings, the kind of terrain that makes Northwest Arkansas famous among mountain bikers. But here's the thing nobody talks about. The thing you only find out if you spend way too much time scrolling through people's trail pics like I do when I can't sleep. There's always someone else in the photos. Someone who shouldn't be there. Someone who's been dead for 70 years. And before you roll your eyes and click away, just keep listening, okay? Because after what happened to my cousin James, and then Anna, and then all of us that one foggy Saturday morning, I'm pretty sure this thing, whatever it is, isn't done yet. It's still out there, still showing up in people's photos, still trying to tell us something. And honestly, I think we need to listen. It started about 2 months ago when my cousin James posted this sick photo on his Instagram. He had been hitting the trail every morning before work, trying to get in shape or whatever, and he always posted these aesthetic shots of the sunrise through the trees. This one photo, though, it was different. In the background, way back near this old wooden bridge, there was this person on a bike, just standing there straddling this ancient-looking bicycle. It was hard to make out details because of the lighting, but something about it felt off. The bike looked wrong somehow. Too tall, too old-fashioned, like something from a museum. James didn't even notice it at first. I only saw it because I was zooming in on the photo to see if I could spot the hawk's nest he had been talking about. When I pointed it out to him, he was like, "Weird, I didn't see anyone else on the trail that morning." But here's where it gets creepy. James kept posting photos from his rides, and the person was in every single one. Every single one. And they were getting closer. At first, it was just a distant figure by the bridge. Then they were near the big oak tree that's about a quarter mile closer. Then by the creek crossing. Then near the bench at the halfway point. Each photo, the figure was in a new spot, always closer to wherever James was taking the picture from. The really messed up part, the bike never changed. It was always this same vintage-looking thing, dark colored with a basket on the front and those old-style curved handlebars. And the person was always just standing there, never riding, never moving, just straddling the bike like they were waiting for something. James started to freak out. He had looked behind him while he was riding, but he never saw anyone. The trail would be completely empty, but then he'd get home, post his photo, and there they'd be again, closer than before. Maybe it's just a coincidence, I told him. Maybe it's some old guy who bikes the trail at the same time you do, and he's just taking breaks when you snap your pics. But James wasn't buying it. He started paying more attention, taking multiple photos from the same spot, looking over his shoulder constantly. The person was only ever in one photo at a time, and always in a different position than where James had looked. Then Anna, this girl from school, started posting photos from the same trail. She had gotten into mountain biking over the summer and was documenting her progress. Guess what showed up in her photos? Same figure, same bike. But here's the thing. Anna usually biked in the evenings after her shift at the ice cream place, and James biked in the mornings. There was no way it was the same person just hanging out on the trail for 12 hours a day. Word started getting around our friend group. Mike, who's super into photography, decided to investigate. He spent a whole Saturday on the trail. taking pictures every few minutes, trying to catch this mysterious biker in action. The results were insane. In Mike's photos, the figure appeared in 17 different locations along the 3-mile trail. 17. But here's the impossible part. Some of the photos were taken just minutes apart from spots that were like half a mile away from each other. No one could move that fast, especially not on an old bike through those woods. Mike tried to zoom in on the clearest photo, the one where the figure was closest. He enhanced it on his laptop and printed it out to show us. We all gathered at his house that night to look at it, and honestly, I wish we hadn't. The bike was definitely vintage. We're talking 1940s or 1950s style. Heavy frame, wide tires, that old-fashioned design. But it was the person that really got to us. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like old-fashioned clothes. Dark pants, white shirt, suspenders maybe, and a cap or hat of some kind. But the face was wrong. Too shadowy, even in the daylight photos. Like there were features there, but they were all blurred or faded somehow. It's probably just the camera quality, Sophia said, but her voice was shaking a little, or the distance or motion blur or something. That's when Mike pulled up something else on his laptop. He had been researching the trail's history online, trying to figure out who this could be. What he found made all of us go quiet. Back in 1952, there was this accident on what used to be called Miller's Creek Road, the same path where the bike trail runs now. A teenager named Thomas Henley was riding his bicycle to his job at the old paper mill. It was early morning, foggy, and a delivery truck didn't see him coming around the bend near the wooden bridge. Thomas was 17. He had just graduated high school and was working to save money for college. He rode the same route every morning on his father's old Schwinn bicycle, a dark blue 1948 model with a front basket and curved handlebars. The accident happened right where James first spotted the figure in his photos. We found Thomas's obituary in the local newspaper archives. There was even a photo of him standing next to his bike in his family's driveway. Same bike, same clothes, same cap. Guys, this is just a coincidence, Anna said, but she had gone pale. People die in accidents all the time. It doesn't mean... That's when Mike showed us the forum post he had found. Apparently, we weren't the first people to notice the mysterious biker. Someone had started a thread about it on a local hiking and biking forum about a year ago. Dozens of people had posted about seeing the same figure in their trail photos. But here's the part that made my blood run cold. People who biked alone on the trail reported hearing things. Old-fashioned bicycle bells ringing in the woods. The sound of tires on gravel behind them when they stopped to rest. But no one was there when they turned around. One person wrote about hearing heavy breathing right next to their ear while they were fixing a flat tire near the creek crossing. But the worst part was from someone called trailrider_2019. They wrote, "I've been biking the Riverside Trail alone for 3 years. Last month, I started hearing the bell behind me every time I rode. Always the same pattern. 3 short rings, pause, 3 short rings. I thought maybe there was another biker who was just being polite, letting me know they wanted to pass. But when I'd pull over and wait, no one would come by. Last week, I was taking a break at the halfway bench when I heard the bell right behind me. I turned around and saw him for the first time with my own eyes, not just in photos. He was maybe 20 feet away, straddling that old bike, staring right at me. I couldn't make out his face clearly, but I could tell he was young, maybe my age when I was in high school. He was wearing clothes that looked like they were from my grandfather's era. We stared at each other for what felt like forever, and then he raised his hand and pointed at something behind me. I turned to look, and when I turned back, he was gone. But I heard the bell ringing as it faded into the distance, getting fainter and fainter until it disappeared completely. I don't bike that trail alone anymore. When I go with friends, he still shows up in photos, but I never hear the bell when other people are around. It's like he only wants to communicate with people who are by themselves. I think he's trying to warn people about something. The spot where he pointed to was right where the old road used to curve, where his accident happened. Maybe he doesn't want anyone else to get hurt the way he did. After reading that, we all kind of sat there in silence for a while. Finally, James spoke up. "I'm going to stop biking in the mornings," he said quietly. "This is too weird." But Anna, who's always been braver than the rest of us, had a different idea. "What if we all go together?" she suggested. "Like a group ride. If he only appears to people who are alone, maybe we'll be safe, and maybe we can figure out what he wants." Looking back, that was probably a mistake. We planned the group ride for the following Saturday morning. 6 of us. Me, James, Anna, Mike, Sophia, and this guy Dylan from our physics class who'd heard about the whole thing and wanted to see for himself. We met at the trail entrance at 8 a.m., right around the time James usually rode alone. The morning was foggy, which should have been our first warning sign. The fog wasn't unusual for late summer mornings, but it was thicker than normal, making the woods feel closed in and mysterious. For the first mile, everything seemed normal. We rode together, talking and joking around, taking pictures of each other and the scenery. The photos looked normal too, just 6 friends having fun on their bikes. But as we got closer to the wooden bridge where Thomas had his accident, things started to feel different. The fog got thicker, and it became harder to stay together as a group. Dylan fell behind because his bike chain was making noise, and Sophia had to stop to retie her shoes. That's when we heard it. Three short rings of a bicycle bell echoing through the fog behind us. We all stopped and looked back, but the fog was too thick to see more than about 10 feet. "Hello?" Anna called out. "Is someone there?" The only answer was another series of bell rings, closer this time. In the viewfinder, he could see farther than we could with our eyes, and that's when he saw him. Thomas was about 30 feet behind us, just visible through the fog. He was standing next to his bike, not straddling it this time, and he was pointing again. But he wasn't pointing at the bridge or the accident site. He was pointing at Dylan, who was still struggling with his bike chain, separated from the rest of our group. "Dylan!" I shouted. "Get over here now!" But as Dylan started walking his bike toward us, we heard something else coming through the fog. The rumble of an engine getting louder and fast. A truck, moving way too fast for the narrow maintenance road that ran parallel to the trail. The same road where Thomas had been hit 70 years ago. Dylan looked up just as the delivery truck burst out of the fog, taking the curve at dangerous speed, just like in 1952. The driver was looking down at something in his lap, probably his phone. If Dylan had still been working on his bike in that exact spot, if Thomas hadn't pointed him out, if we hadn't called him over. The truck roared past, disappearing back into the fog, leaving us all shaking and staring at the spot where Dylan had been standing just seconds before. When we looked back toward where we'd seen Thomas, he was gone, but Mike's phone had captured one final photo. In the picture, Thomas was smiling. For the first time in any of the photos any of us had taken, his face was clear and visible. He looked exactly like he did in his 1952 graduation photo. Young, hopeful, relieved. And behind him, barely visible in the fog, were dozens of other figures on bikes. Old bikes, new bikes, all different eras, all watching, all waiting, all ready to warn the next person who might need their help. We don't bike the Riverside Trail anymore. Not because we're scared of Thomas, we're not. We understand now that he's trying to help, trying to prevent other accidents like the one that killed him. But here's the thing that really gets me. After we posted about our experience on that same forum, other people started sharing their stories. Turns out the Riverside Trail has been the site of dozens of accidents over the years. Bikes, cars, even some hikers who got lost and fell into the creek. And for every accident, there's been at least one person who reported seeing figures in their photos, or hearing warning sounds, or getting that strange feeling that made them stop or move, or take a different path just in time to avoid disaster. The trail isn't haunted, it's protected. Thomas and all the others who died there, they're not trying to scare people away. They're trying to keep us safe. They're standing guard, watching out for anyone who might meet the same fate they did. But they can only do so much. They can ring their bells, appear in photos, point out danger when they see it coming. The rest is up to us. So if you ever decide to bike the Riverside Trail, and honestly, it's still a beautiful trail, don't let this story scare you away from it completely. Just remember a few things. Don't go alone. Thomas and the others seem to have an easier time helping people when they're in groups. Pay attention to your surroundings. If you hear a bell ringing and you don't see another biker, stop and look around carefully. And if you see an old-fashioned bicycle in your photos, or a figure pointing at something, don't ignore it. They're trying to tell you something important. Most importantly, respect what happened there. These aren't just ghost stories or urban legends. Real people died on that trail. And somehow, they're still looking out for the rest of us. That's got to count for something, right? James still posts photos from his morning bike rides, but he sticks to other trails now. Sometimes, though, he'll scroll back through his old Instagram posts and look at those pictures of Thomas getting closer and closer. I think he was just trying to get our attention, James said the last time we talked about it. Like, he was trying to tell us about the danger, but we had to notice him first before he could help. Maybe that's true. Maybe Thomas spent months appearing in our photos, getting closer each time, hoping that someone would finally see him and understand what he was trying to say. And you know what? I'm glad we figured it out when we did, because now, whenever I see stories online about mysterious figures in photos, or unexplained sounds in the woods, or people getting strange feelings that save them from accidents, I think about Thomas and wonder if there are other guardians out there, other people who choose to stay behind and help instead of moving on. I hope there are, because even though it's scary to think about ghosts and spirits and people who died before their time, it's also kind of comforting to know that someone's still looking out for us, even if we can only see them in the background of our photos, getting closer one picture at a time, trying to tell us something important before it's too late. So next time you're looking through photos from a hike or a bike ride, take a closer look at the background. You never know who might be trying to get your attention. And if you see them, don't be afraid. Just listen to what they're trying to tell you. Your life might depend on it.
When you're alone in your house, but you'd like to feel like you're not, the podcast inside your house can keep you company. Our show will make sure that you run up the stairs at night when you turn off the lights and check under your bed before you sleep. We'll bring you every kind of horror, from the classics like Lovecraft and Poe to the strange and often silly world of no sleep and creepypastas. We've even got stories written just for the show that you won't hear anywhere else. So go and check out the podcast inside your house. We're on all major platforms, as well as Inside Your Pantry, deep in your crawl space and sitting at the foot of your bed at night, watching you sleep.
That first time Clover truly understood what love meant, she was 17, and watching her mother peel apples with years of practiced precision. Each curl of red skin fell into the bowl with a wet whisper, leaving behind pale flesh that would brown and rot if not eaten quickly enough. "Your sister needs you," her mother said without looking up from her work. The kitchen knife caught the afternoon light streaming through the window, casting fractured rainbows across the white tiles. "She's always needed you." Clover had heard variations of this phrase her entire life. When she had scraped her knee at age 6, rushing to give blood samples that somehow always ended up in Rose's medical files. When she had been homeschooled instead of attending the local high school, because Rose needs consistency in her environment. When she had never been allowed sleepovers, birthday parties, or friends, because Rose can't be exposed to germs. But today, something in her mother's voice made the words feel different, heavier, final. "What do you mean?" Clover asked, though part of her, the part that had always lived in the shadow of her sister's illness, already knew. Her mother set down the knife and turned to face her. Margaret Thorne had once been beautiful, Clover supposed, but years of caring for a chronically ill child had carved deep lines around her eyes and mouth. Her hands, now reaching for Clover's face, smelled of antiseptic and apple juice. "Rose's kidneys are failing," she said simply. "Complete renal failure. She has maybe 6 months without a transplant." Clover's stomach dropped. "But the waiting list?" "There is no waiting list for Rose." Margaret's fingers were cold against Clover's cheek. "There never was. We've been preparing for this day since before you were born." The words didn't make sense. Clover shook her head, stepping back from her mother's touch. "What are you talking about?" "Sit down, sweetheart." "I don't want to sit down." "Clover, sit." There was something in her mother's voice. Not quite a command, but not quite a request either, that made Clover's legs fold beneath her. She found herself in the wooden chair where she had eaten thousands of meals, always positioned so she could see Rose's bedroom door down the hallway. "Your father and I," Margaret began, settling into the chair across from her. "We tried for years to have another child after Rose was born, but after her diagnosis, well, we knew any future children would need to be compatible." The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Clover's throat was dry. Compatible? Genetically matched. Same blood type, same tissue markers, same... Margaret paused, as if searching for the right word. Same everything that matters. "You mean..." "We designed you, Clover. Every part of you. Your DNA was selected specifically to be Rose's perfect match." That last line gives me goosebumps, but it got me thinking about purpose, about being designed for something. Obviously, most of us aren't genetically engineered to be organ donors, but that pressure to be everything for everyone, that hits home for me. And I know firsthand that it can wear you down. That's been my life lately. Juggling story deadlines, recording schedules, parenting, and still trying to show up creatively. This past month, I've been relying on Magic Mind, and honestly, it's made a huge difference. Magic Mind reached out a few weeks ago and sent me samples of all 3 of their formulations to try first, before we even talked about sponsoring. I decided to have them as a sponsor because the products actually work. I tried all 3 formulations during their challenge. Original with the white bottle and yellow label in the first 2 days, free in the light green bottle in the following 2, and Max in the dark green bottle with their strongest formula in the last 2 days of the challenge. Max is my go-to now, and what I've been using consistently this past month. On days where I feel like my brain's made of fog, and my to-do list is a horror movie in itself, Max helps me cut through the noise and actually lock in. No crash, no jitters, just a steady, focused energy. that lets me do deep creative work or survive a grocery store run with 3 kids. Why does it work? Nano-encapsulation. It sounds sci-fi, but it basically means the ingredients are absorbed more efficiently, up to 5 times better than regular supplements. That includes adaptogens, nootropics, and time-released caffeine, so you get that sharpness without burning out. If you're balancing a lot, love caffeine, or need that extra kick for demanding days, I can't recommend Max enough. If you're more like my best friend who drinks way too much coffee, I'd actually recommend the free formulation, since it has 0 caffeine but still gives you that clear focus. And right now, Magic Mind is launching with their biggest discount ever. My listeners get 60% off your first subscription. This is honestly insane value and won't be around for long. Just use my link, magicmind.com/CarmanMF, or code Carman60 at checkout. There's even a 100% money-back guarantee, so it's literally risk-free to try it. I'd really grab this offer now while it lasts. The words hit like a solid punch to the stomach. Clover gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles white. That's impossible. You can't just design a person. Can't you? Margaret's smile was sad and strange. We found a doctor in Switzerland, very expensive, very discreet. He specialized in what he called therapeutic siblings, children created specifically to help their older brothers and sisters. Clover's mind reeled. She thought of all the medical appointments over the years, all the tests and blood draws and biopsies that had been explained away as routine checkups. She thought of how she'd never been allowed to play contact sports, how her diet had been carefully monitored, how she'd never been permitted to get a driver's license because accidents happen. But now other memories surfaced, things she'd never questioned before. The way her parents had always spoken about her in clinical terms. Never our daughter, but the subject or the secondary patient. How they'd discussed her growth charts and blood work over dinner, as if she weren't sitting right there. The way her mother had never comforted her when she scraped her knee, but had instead immediately swabbed the wound and rushed her to Dr. Hendricks for contamination assessment. She remembered her 5th birthday when she had asked for a party like the one she'd seen in books. Her parents had exchanged that look, the one she now recognized as concern over her developing too much independence. And Margaret had said, "Parties are too stimulating for children with your condition." But what condition? She'd never been told she was sick. She remembered asking for a pet when she was 8, and her father explaining that animals carry disease that could compromise the sterile environment necessary for optimal development. Not her development, just development, as if she were an experiment in a lab. She had remembered the way they'd celebrated Rose's birthdays with elaborate cakes and presents, while her own birthdays were marked with nothing more than a medical examination and a notation in a chart. 17 years of successful cultivation. Her father had said last month, writing in a leather-bound journal. She had thought he was being poetic about her growth into adulthood. "You've been keeping me like livestock," she whispered. "Like a miracle," Margaret corrected. "You are Rose's miracle. You always have been." The sound of footsteps on the stairs made both women look up. Rose appeared in the doorway, and Clover was struck by how much worse her sister looked than even a week ago. Her skin had taken on a grayish pallor, and dark circles ringed her sunken eyes. She moved carefully, one hand braced against the doorframe, her breathing slightly labored. Despite her obvious weakness, there was something different in her expression, a grim determination that Clover had never seen before. "Is it time?" Rose asked, her voice hoarse but steady. "Almost," Margaret replied. "Dr. Hendricks will be here in an hour." "Dr. Hendricks?" Clover stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. "Our family doctor?" "He's been a part of this from the beginning," Rose said, slowly making her way to the chair their mother had vacated. She gripped the back of it for support before carefully lowering herself down. He's been monitoring both of us, making sure we stayed healthy enough for the procedure. What procedure? But even as Clover asked, she knew, had always known, somewhere deep in her bones. The harvest, Rose said simply. Your kidneys first, of course, but also your liver, your heart, your lungs, even your skin if we're careful about it. The room spun. Clover grabbed the counter for support, her legs threatening to give out. You're talking about killing me. We're talking about saving me, Rose corrected. And really, what's the difference? You were never meant to be a whole person, Clover. You were meant to be my spare parts. That's not true. I have thoughts, feelings, dreams. Do you? Rose tilted her head, studying her sister. Or do you just think you do? Dr. Hendricks has been very careful about your psychological development. Every book you've read, every movie you've watched, every experience you've had, it's all been designed to keep you compliant and healthy. Clover's memories felt suddenly suspect. The homeschooling that had been isolated from her peers, the carefully curated library that had shaped her worldview, the way she had always felt comfortable in the house, most at peace when she was caring for Rose. Even your name, Margaret added softly. Clover, a plant that grows wild but serves a purpose. Ground cover to protect the more delicate flowers. Stop it! Clover's voice cracked. Just stop! I know it's hard to accept, Rose said, her tone gentle but implacable. But think about it logically. You've never had any real ambitions beyond taking care of me. You've never fallen in love, never dreamed of traveling or having a career. You've never even wanted to leave this house for more than a few hours. It was true, and that truth felt like acid in Clover's throat. She'd always been content to live in Rose's shadow, to exist in the spaces between her sister's medical appointments. She had never questioned why she felt most fulfilled when she was helping Rose, never wondered why her own desires always seemed secondary. The conditioning worked perfectly, Margaret said with something like pride. You've been the perfect donor, daughter. I won't do it. Clover backed toward the door, but Rose moved faster than she should have been able to, blocking her path. You don't have a choice, Rose said. You never did. Legal guardian consent, medical necessity. And let's be honest, who would believe you? As far as the outside world knows, you barely exist. It was another truth that cut deep. Clover had no social security number, no birth certificate, no legal identity beyond what her parents had carefully constructed. She was a ghost in the system, visible only when it served Rose's needs. Please, Clover whispered. I don't want to die. You won't die, Rose said. You'll live on in me. Isn't that what love is? Complete sacrifice. The front door opened, and Dr. Hendricks entered without knocking. He was a small man with kind eyes and gentle hands, the same man who'd given Clover lollipops after her checkups and told her what a good girl she was. How are you feeling today, Clover? He asked, setting down his black bag on the kitchen table. Scared, she admitted. That's normal. The preoperative anxiety will pass. He began unpacking supplies, syringes, vials, surgical instruments that gleamed in the kitchen light. I've brought something to help you relax. I don't want to relax. I want to leave. That's not possible, Dr. Hendricks said gently, but I can make this easier for you. A small injection, and you'll just drift off to sleep. When you wake up, you'll be with Rose forever. I won't wake up at all. No, he agreed. But Rose will, and she'll carry the best parts of you with her. Clover looked around the kitchen that had been her world for 17 years. The apple peels in the bowl had turned brown, just as her mother had predicted. Everything rotted, eventually, if not consumed in time. What about my soul? She asked quietly. The question seemed to surprise everyone. Dr. Hendricks paused in his preparations. Margaret looked uncomfortable. Even Rose seemed momentarily uncertain. I don't know if you have one, Rose said finally. I mean, not in the way other people do. You were made to be part of me. But what if I do? Clover pressed. What if I'm a real person, with a real soul, and you're about to murder me? Then you'll go to heaven, Margaret said quickly. And God will understand that you died for love. Will he? Clover asked. Or will he understand that you created a life just to destroy it? The silence stretched between them. Dr. Hendricks had gone very still, his hands hovering over his instruments. Margaret's face had gone pale. Rose, however, was staring at Clover with something like hunger. It doesn't matter, Rose said finally. Soul or no soul, you're going to save me, because that's what you were made for. Dr. Hendricks picked up the syringe. This will only take a moment. Clover closed her eyes and thought about the apple peels in the bowl, red skin curling away from pale flesh, beauty discarded to preserve what lay beneath. She thought about all the books she had read, all the movies she had watched, all the experiences she'd been allowed to have. Had any of it been real, or had it all been designed to keep her docile, compliant, ready for harvest? I forgive you, she said suddenly. Dr. Hendricks stopped. What? I forgive you, all of you. Clover opened her eyes and looked at each of them in turn. I forgive you for what you've done to me, for what you're about to do. Clover, Margaret started, but I won't pretend it's love. Clover continued. Love doesn't create life just to destroy it. Love doesn't reduce a person to spare parts. What you're doing, it's not love. It's selfishness. It's evil. You don't understand, Rose said, but her voice lacked its earlier certainty. I understand perfectly. You're so afraid of dying that you're willing to murder me to live. You're so selfish that you convinced yourself I'm not really human. Clover stood straighter, finding strength in her anger. But I am human. I am real. And what you're doing is wrong. It's too late for philosophy, Dr. Hendricks said, raising the syringe. The surgical team's already on their way. Then you'll have to do it while I'm fighting, Clover said. While I'm screaming, while I'm begging for my life. The words hung in the air like a curse. Dr. Hendricks lowered the syringe slightly. Margaret was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Rose was staring at Clover with something that might have been recognition. I had dreams, Clover said quietly. Real dreams. I wanted to see the ocean. I wanted to fall in love. I wanted to plant a garden and watch things grow. Maybe those dreams were programmed into me, but they felt real. They felt like mine. Clover, please, Margaret whispered. I'm 17 years old. Clover continued. I've never been kissed. I've never had a friend. I've never seen a sunrise that wasn't filtered through these windows. And now you want to take even that away from me. To save your sister, Dr. Hendricks said. But his voice lacked conviction. To feed my sister, Clover corrected. Like a parasite. Like a vampire. Rose flinched as if struck. I'm not. What are you then? Clover asked. What kind of person accepts the murder of their sister as the price of their survival? A desperate one, Rose whispered. A monstrous one, Clover replied. The kitchen fell silent, except for the ticking of the wall clock and Margaret's quiet sobs. Dr. Hendricks was still holding the syringe, but his hands were shaking now. I could run, Clover said. Try to escape. But where would I go? You've made sure I have nowhere to run. So instead, I'll stay. I'll let you do what you plan to do, but I won't pretend it's anything other than murder. Clover, I'll haunt you, she continued, her voice gaining strength. Every day you live with my organs inside you, I'll be there. Every breath you take with my lungs, every heartbeat from my heart, I'll be reminding you of what you did. You'll never escape the knowledge that you're a killer. Rose was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I just want to live. So did I, Clover said simply. Dr. Hendricks set down the syringe with trembling hands. I can't do this. You have to, Margaret said desperately. Rose will die without. Then Rose will die, Dr. Hendricks began, packing his instruments back into his bag. But I won't be a party to murder. That's what this is, murder. Wait, Rose said, standing up. Please, I can't die. I'm not ready. Neither was I, Clover said. Rose looked at her sister, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in years. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know, Clover replied, but sorry doesn't change what you were willing to do. After Dr. Hendricks left, the silence in the kitchen stretched like a taut wire. Margaret stared at the closed door, her breathing becoming shallow and rapid. Mom, Rose said tentatively, we can find another doctor. There has to be someone. No. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. No, there isn't. He was the only one who understood, the only one who cared about our family. Clover watched her mother's face change, saw something fragile finally snap behind her eyes. Margaret's carefully controlled composure, 17 years of managing this impossible situation, cracked like ice. It's over, Margaret said, her voice taking on a strange sing-song quality. Rose is going to die. My beautiful, perfect Rose is going to die. And it's all for nothing. Mom, please. Rose started. But maybe. Margaret's eyes found the knife she'd been using to peel apples. It lay long forgotten on the counter, the blade still gleaming. Maybe there's another way. If we can't save you, Rose, maybe we can keep you forever. Clover felt the ice form in her stomach. What are you talking about? Margaret picked up the knife, turning it over in her hands like she was seeing it for the first time. Families should stay together, always together. If one of us can't live, then none of us should. Put the knife down, Clover said, backing toward the hallway. Don't you see? Margaret's smile was terrifying in its gentleness. This way Rose won't suffer. This way you won't have to live with the guilt of refusing to save your sister. This way we'll all be together forever. Clover felt ice form in her stomach. What are you talking about? Margaret picked up the knife, turning it over in her hands like she was seeing it for the first time. Families should stay together, always together. If one of us can't live, then none of us should. Put the knife down, Clover said, backing toward the hallway. Don't you see? Margaret's smile was terrifying in its gentleness. This way, Rose won't suffer. This way, you won't have to live with the guilt of refusing to save your sister. This way, we'll be together forever. Rose pushed herself from the chair, swaying with the effort. Mom, you're scaring me. Please, just put it down. I won't let strangers take you away, Margaret continued, as if Rose hadn't spoken. I won't let them put Rose in some terrible hospital bed to die alone. I won't let them separate our family. Clover realized with horror that her mother wasn't talking about mercy killing. She was talking about murder-suicide. All of them, together. We can work this out, Clover said, trying to keep her voice calm. There are other options. 17 years, Margaret said, advancing slowly. 17 years I've planned for this day. 17 years I've kept this family together, kept Rose alive, kept you safe and healthy. And for what? For some doctor to just walk away. The knife caught in the kitchen light as she raised it. Rose scrambled backward. Mom, no! Rose screamed. By the way, quick reminder, that Magic Mind discount is 60% off at magicmind.com/CarmanMF or code Carman60. Links in the description. As my stomach rumbled, I suddenly remember the only thing I like about the local mall, the food court. At this rate, it would probably be closed by the time Belle was done trying on everything in the store. I rubbed my growling stomach and slumped farther down into the smelly chair outside the fitting room, wondering how I always ended up in these predicaments. I had to learn how to say no. Hey, Gabby. Earth to Gabby. I heard Bellamy trying to pull me from my food fantasies. How does this one look? My mouth gaped as I took in the too short, too tight dress she was wearing, if you could call it a dress. It looked like a tank top stretched just beneath her backside. I tried to find a nice way to tell her that she looked like one of the working girls down on 6th Street. They were always out there on the corners after dark beneath the flickering lights with their short skirts and revealing tops, but I couldn't bring myself to say it so bluntly. Instead, I forced a smile and said, It's definitely bold. Maybe try the blue one instead. I think it would be more flattering on you. Bellamy frowned at her reflection in the mirror, tugging at the hem that barely covered anything, and for a moment I thought she might actually listen to reason for once. You're just jealous because you don't have the confidence to wear something like this, she snapped, her phone buzzing insistently in her hand. She glanced at the screen and her whole demeanor changed, a secretive smile spreading across her face. Besides, someone thinks I look amazing in it. I raised an eyebrow. Someone? Just this guy I've been talking to. He's been giving me fashion advice. She held up her phone, showing me a profile picture of what looked like a college-aged guy with perfectly styled hair and a charming smile. Something about the photo seemed off, too polished, like it came from a modeling website. Belle, you don't even know this person. What if he's not who he says he is? God, Gabby, you're so paranoid. Not everyone online is some creepy old man in his basement. Derek is 22 and he goes to state. We've been talking for weeks. The name Derek sent a chill down my spine, though I couldn't say why. Maybe it was the way she said it, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. Have you video called him? We're meeting tonight, actually. She turned back to the mirror, adjusting the barely there dress. He's picking me up after we leave here. My stomach dropped, and it wasn't from hunger anymore. Bellamy, That's insane. You can't just meet some random guy. He's not random, she interrupted, but her voice had a defensive edge that made me more worried. Look, he sent me money to buy this dress. He wanted to see me in it. She gestured to the skimpy outfit. Guys don't do that unless they're serious. The fluorescent lights above us flickered, casting strange shadows across the fitting room. Outside, I could hear the mall's ambient noise. Kids playing, the distant sound of the fountain, security guards' radios crackling. But underneath it all was something else, a low rumble that seemed to come from the very bones of the building. Belle, please. This sounds like every internet safety video we watched in school. What if... My phone buzzed with a news alert. Local police report increases in missing persons cases. Authorities advise residents to be cautious when meeting strangers. The timing felt like a sign. But when I showed it to Bellamy, she just laughed. You're being ridiculous. What are the odds? She was typing rapidly on her phone. Derek says he's already in the parking lot. Black SUV, just like he said he'd be driving. Through the store's windows, I could see the sun setting, painting the sky in an ominous red. The mall was starting to empty out, stores pulling down their security gates one by one. Even the ever-present background music seemed to have shifted to something more minor key, more unsettling. I have a really bad feeling about this, I said. But Bellamy was already heading to the checkout counter with the dress. As we walked through the nearly empty mall toward the exit, our footsteps echoed strangely. The few remaining shoppers looked tired, almost zombie-like under the harsh lighting. Near the entrance, an elderly security guard was reading a newspaper with the headline, "Full Moon Brings Out the Worst in People." Look, Bellamy said, pointing through the glass doors to the parking lot. There he is. A black SUV sat idling near the entrance, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. Something about it seemed wrong. Too clean, too perfect, like it was trying too hard to look normal. As we approached, the driver's side window rolled down just enough for a hand to wave, but I still couldn't see the person inside. Belle, please don't do this, I whispered, grabbing her arm. Something feels off. Trust me. She pulled away. You're just mad because no one ever asks you out. Some of us don't want to die alone, Gabby. The words stung, but my fear was stronger than my hurt feelings. As Bellamy walked toward the SUV, every instinct I had was screaming at me to run the other way. The parking lot lights were starting to flicker on, but several were burned out, creating pools of darkness between the scattered cars. The SUV's passenger door opened, and I heard a man's voice, deeper and rougher than I'd expected from someone who was supposed to be 22. Bellamy, you look even more beautiful than your pictures. Just as the door was about to slam shut, a long, bone-chilling howl echoed across the parking lot. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before. Not a dog, not a wolf from any nature documentary. Something primal and wrong. The sound made my blood run cold and solidified every terrible feeling I'd had all evening. Without thinking, I sprinted toward the SUV just as it started to pull away. Wait! I shouted, banging on the passenger side window. Belle, please! The SUV stopped abruptly. Through the tinted glass, I could hear muffled voices. Bellamy arguing with someone whose voice was definitely not that of a 22-year-old college student. Let me in! I yanked on the door handle. Bellamy, I'm not letting you go alone. The back door clicked open, and Bellamy's face appeared, flushed and annoyed. Gabby, what the hell? You're embarrassing me. I don't care. I'm coming with you. I climbed into the back seat before she could protest further. The interior smelled wrong, like mold and something metallic that made my stomach turn. Derek didn't turn around to look at me, but I could see his reflection in the rearview mirror. His eyes were too dark, too intense, and when he smiled at Bellamy, the numerous lines around his eyes were not those of a 22-year-old. "The more the merrier," he said in that gravelly voice that definitely didn't match his profile picture. "I know the perfect place for all of us." As we pulled out of the parking lot, another howl split the night air, longer and closer this time. Derek's hands tightened on the steering wheel, and for just a moment, he seemed nervous. "What was that?" Bellamy asked, finally sounding a little nervous herself. "Just coyotes," Derek said quickly. "Lots of them in the woods where we're going." We'd been driving for 20 minutes when Derek turned off the main road onto a dirt path that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Tree branches scraped against the windows with sounds like fingernails on glass. Bellamy had grown quiet, finally sensing that something was off, but she was trapped between Derek and the door. "Where exactly are we going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Derek laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "We're almost there, sweetheart. Don't worry. I have everything we need." He gestured toward something in his jacket. "Something to help you both relax." The way he said it made me reach for my phone, but there was no signal out here. My head was starting to feel strange, fuzzy around the edges. Had there been something in the water bottle he had offered us earlier? The SUV bounced over ruts and rocks, going deeper into what felt like wilderness. Through the windshield, I could see the full moon hanging between the skeletal branches of dead trees. Another howl echoed through the forest. This one so close it seemed to vibrate through the vehicle itself. "Okay, I think we should head back," Bellamy said, her voice small and uncertain for the first time all evening. "This is getting weird." Derek laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "We're almost there, sweetheart. Don't worry, I have everything we need." The way he said, "everything we need," made me reach for my phone again, but there was still no signal. The forest seemed to swallow all traces of the modern world. Finally, the SUV stopped in a small clearing surrounded by towering pines. Derek turned off the engine, plunging us into darkness except for the moonlight filtering through the canopy. The sudden silence was deafening. "This is beautiful," Derek said, turning to where I could see his face for the first time. The moonlight revealed his true face, weathered, scarred, with eyes that held no warmth whatsoever. This was definitely not a 22-year-old college student. Just the three of us, no one for miles. Bellamy pressed herself against the door. "I want to go home. Now." "Oh, honey," Derek said, reaching into his jacket. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen." That's when I saw the knife. But what happened next? It gets hazy. I remember Derek reaching for the knife, and then everything became a nightmare of shadows and violence. Something massive slammed into the side of the SUV with such force that it nearly flipped the vehicle. The windows on Derek's side exploded inward in a shower of glass and twisted metal. Through the shattered opening came claws, long, deadly claws attached to arms covered in coarse fur. Derek's scream was cut short as something inhuman grabbed him and yanked him bodily through the busted car window. I caught a glimpse of yellow eyes and slavering jaws before Derek disappeared completely into the darkness outside. His screams echoed through the forest for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds, before they were suddenly, violently cut off. "Run!" I remember screaming, or maybe Bellamy screamed it. Maybe we both did. The remaining windows of the SUV began to buckle inward as more creatures surrounded us. We threw ourselves out the passenger side door and ran into the woods. branches tearing at our clothes and skin. Behind us, the sounds of violence continued, but we knew they wouldn't last long. The forest around us was pitch black, except for patches of moonlight that created more shadows than illumination. Behind us, the sounds from the clearing continued, but I knew they wouldn't last long. Bellamy kicked off her heels and we ran into the woods, branches tearing at our clothes and skin. Every shadow looked like it could be hiding something with claws and teeth. Every sound made us run faster. "I'm sorry," Bellamy sobbed as we stumbled through the underbrush. "I'm so sorry, Gabby. You were right. You were right about everything." But there was no time for apologies. Behind us, the sounds from the clearing had stopped, and somewhere in the darkness, something was howling. But it wasn't the same as before. This howl was different, closer. There was something out there hunting us. We crashed through the forest, Bellamy's bare feet bleeding from rocks and thorns, while I stumbled in my sneakers over roots and uneven ground. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching it happen to someone else. The drugs, whatever Derek had given us, made the world tilt and shift in ways that defied logic. I can't run anymore," Bellamy gasped, stumbling against a massive oak tree. Her perfectly styled hair was now a tangled mess, and her makeup had run in black streaks down her cheeks. "You have to," I panted, though my own voice sounded strange and distant to my ears. "They're still out there." The sounds behind us were getting closer. Heavy breathing, branches breaking, something large moving through the underbrush. But when I tried to focus on exactly what I was hearing, the details slipped away like water. I looked around desperately, trying to find an escape route, but everything seemed to shift and blur at the edges of my vision. That's when I spotted it, about 50 yards ahead. The outline of an old cabin. It looked abandoned, with broken windows and a partially collapsed roof, but it was shelter. Or maybe it was just shadows playing tricks on my drugged mind. "There!" I pointed with a hand that felt like it belonged to someone else. "Can you make it?" Bellamy nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I think so." We ran toward what I hoped was sanctuary. But the world kept tilting wrong. Behind us, I could hear something crashing through the woods. The cabin door hung open on broken hinges. We threw ourselves inside and found something to barricade the door. I think it was furniture, though the details are fuzzy. The whole place felt like it was underwater, sounds muffled and strange. Something heavy slammed into the door from outside, again and again. Through the broken windows, I caught a glimpse of movement, but whether it was human or animal, or just my terror-soaked imagination, I couldn't tell anymore. "The windows," Bellamy said, pointing to the broken glass. "It can get in through the windows." She was right. The windows were too big and too low to defend. We were trapped in a cabin that was more holes than walls, with something outside that seemed determined to get in. "There," I said, spotting a trap door in the corner of the room. "Maybe there's a basement." We pulled up the wooden panel, revealing a ladder that disappeared into darkness below. The smell that wafted up was musty and old, but it was better than staying up here. "I'll go first," I said, swinging my legs over the edge. The ladder was old, and some of the rungs were broken, but it held our weight. We descended into what looked like a root cellar, stone walls, dirt floor, shelves lined with ancient preserve jars. It was completely dark except for the pale rectangle of moonlight from the trap door above. We had barely pulled the trap door closed when we heard the cabin door finally give way. Heavy footsteps thundered across the floor above us, accompanied by snuffing and growling. Something was sniffing the air, tracking our scent. Bellamy and I huddled together in the darkness, hardly daring to breathe. Above us, the footsteps paused directly over the trap door. A drop of something warm and wet splashed onto my face. I looked up and saw a single yellow eye peering through a crack in the floorboards, staring right at me. The trap door exploded inward, and we found ourselves staring up at something that had once been human, but was now something else entirely. It stood on 2 legs, but was covered in coarse fur, with elongated limbs and a face that was part man, part wolf, part nightmare. It let out a bone-chilling howl that echoed through the small cellar, then reached down toward us with claws that gleamed in the moonlight. But Bellamy wasn't the helpless girl from the mall anymore. She grabbed one of the old preserve jars and hurled it at the creature's face with perfect aim. The glass shattered, sending the thing reeling backward with a howl of pain and rage. "The far wall!" I shouted, spotting what looked like another passage leading deeper underground. "There's a tunnel!" We crawled through the narrow opening just as more creatures dropped into the cellar behind us. The tunnel was barely wide enough for us to move through on our hands and knees, but it seemed to lead away from the cabin. Behind us, snarls and claws scraped against stone as they tried to follow. "Where does this go?" Bellamy gasped. "I don't know," I admitted, "but anywhere is better than back there." The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, but finally we saw light ahead. Not electric lights, but pale dawn breaking through what looked like another opening. We emerged into what turned out to be another old root cellar, this one attached to a long-abandoned farmhouse. "It's just storage," Bellamy whispered, looking around at the rotting wooden shelves and moldy canning jars. Then she spotted the stone steps leading up to what looked like cellar doors. "Wait, there! Those doors lead outside." Through the gaps in the old wood, I could see the first hints of sunrise painting the sky pink. "We can get out this way," I said, pushing against the doors. They were heavy and warped with age, but they gave way with a loud creak. We climbed out into the early morning air. The abandoned farmhouse stood like a skeleton against the dawn sky, its windows dark and empty. Around us, overgrown fields stretched toward a distant tree line, and beyond that, I could just make out the shape of a road. "We made it," Bellamy said, laughing with relief and hysteria. "We actually made it." But even as she spoke, I could hear them, distant howls echoing across the fields. The creatures had found our trail again, and they were coming. "We need to keep moving," I said, grabbing her arm. "The road is maybe half a mile that way." We ran across the open field, the sun not even high enough to cast our shadows. Behind us, the howls grew closer. Without the cover of the forest, we were completely exposed. 2 figures running across empty farmland with nowhere to hide. Bellamy was struggling to keep up, her bare feet cut and bleeding, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The ridiculous dress that she insisted on wearing from the mall, that had started this whole nightmare, was now torn and muddy, completely useless in our fight for survival. "I can see the road," I shouted, pointing ahead to where asphalt gleamed in the morning sun. That's when Bellamy stumbled and fell hard, crying out as she twisted her ankle. I turned back to help her up, and my blood turned to ice. 3 of the creatures had emerged from the tree line behind us, their massive forms moving with terrifying speed across the open ground. They ran sometimes on 4 legs, sometimes on 2, covering the distance between us faster than should have been possible. "Get up!" I screamed, pulling at Bellamy's arm. "They're almost here!" But her ankle was badly twisted, and she could barely put weight on it. "I can't," she sobbed. "Gabby, I can't run anymore." The road was so close. maybe 100 yards away. I could see a car in the distance, driving along the highway. If I could just flag them down. "Leave me," Bellamy said. And for the first time since I'd known her, she wasn't thinking about herself. "Run, Gabby. Get help." "I'm not leaving you." But the creatures were only 50 yards away now. I could see their yellow eyes, their slavering jaws, the way their claws dug into the earth with each bounding step. Bellamy made the choice for me. She shoved me away with surprising strength. "Go!" I ran, hating myself with every step, but knowing she was right. Behind me, I heard her scream. Not the petty, dramatic scream she had made in the mall when her favorite store was closed, but something raw and terrified, and final. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I reached the road just as a pickup truck rounded the bend. I threw myself into its path, waving my arms frantically. The truck screeched to a halt, and an elderly farmer jumped out. "Jesus, girl, what happened to you?" I was covered in blood and dirt, my clothes torn, sobbing hysterically. "Please," I gasped. "Call the police. Call everyone. There are things in the woods. My friend." He helped me into the truck and handed me his phone. As I dialed 911 with shaking fingers, I finally looked back across the field. The creatures were gone. So was Bellamy. The police found Derek's SUV, of course, and what was left of him inside it. They found the abandoned cabin and evidence of a struggle. They even found blood in the field where Bellamy had made her last stand. But they never found her body. And when I tried to tell them about the creatures, about the hunt through the woods, they exchanged those looks that adults give each other when they think a kid is lying or crazy. The official report said that Derek Thompson had attacked us. That much was clear from the physical evidence. But everything else, they said, was trauma-induced hallucinations. The drugs they found in my system, combined with the shock of witnessing violence, had made my mind create monsters to explain what it couldn't process. "It's common," the therapist told me later. "The brain protects itself by transforming unbearable memories into something symbolic. You created these creatures because the reality of what that man did was too horrible to face directly. But I know they were real. Every full moon, I feel the change starting. My teeth ache, my vision sharpens, and something wild stirs beneath my skin. The scars on my arms burn like fire, and I find myself drawn to the woods where it all began. The therapists think I'm healing, but they don't understand. I'm not the same girl who ran screaming from those creatures. I'm becoming one of them. I'm becoming a predator." This summer break had been a long, hot one. The grass had long turned brown by early August. It was also the first summer that I chose to work instead of sleeping in, mastering my Call of Duty skills or going to the lake with the guys. But I needed that car before school started, or I'd be the only senior still riding the school bus. My dad had made a deal with me. If I could save up half the down payment, he would pay the other half. Ethan's parents had bought his first car for his 16th birthday, a slightly used Toyota Camry. Tristan's parents had unveiled his brand new Mustang GT last Christmas. But my parents were more traditional. "Paying for your own car will teach you the real value of money and make you appreciate what you have," my dad had told me. When I told him about Ethan and Tristan's parents buying their cars for them, "They're raising entitled brats who won't know how to work for anything." The funny thing was that I knew Dad was right. I knew that even before I took the job, or came home with the last $200 for my half of the down payment. I was so excited. I already knew what I wanted. There was a used car lot right next to Buster's Burgers, where I worked. They had a sweet jacked-up Toyota Tacoma, that caught my eye every single day I walked to work. Forest green with oversized tires and a light bar across the top. It wasn't practical, it wasn't sensible, but man, it was exactly what a 17-year-old thought looked cool. Dad came with me that Saturday morning, his coffee mug in one hand and a skeptical look on his face, as he examined the Tacoma's undercarriage. The salesman, Jerry, was all smiles and handshakes, but Dad asked the hard questions about maintenance records and why the previous owner had sold it. An hour later, we were signing papers. As Jerry handed me the keys, Dad clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You earned this, son." For the first time all summer, his approval meant more to me than the truck itself. That evening, I drove the Tacoma to work for the first time, parking it right out front where everyone could see. My coworkers gathered around, admiring the lift kit and running their hands along the oversized tires. When Buster stepped out of the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron, I held my breath. He had been more than a boss to me this summer. He had become like a mentor, always pushing me to work harder and take pride in what I was doing. "Well, I'll be damned, Nate," Buster said, walking a slow circle around the truck. "You actually did it." He grinned and gave the hood an approving pat. "You know what? You've been busting your ass all summer long. Why don't you take the weekend off? Enjoy that truck. School starts Monday anyway. Consider it your last taste of freedom." I couldn't believe it. My mind immediately went to the camping trip Ethan and Tristan had been planning for weeks up at Devil's Lake. They had been texting me about it all month, but I'd had to turn them down every time because of work. Now, with my own truck and an unexpected free weekend, I could actually go. I pulled out my phone right there in the parking lot and fired off a quick text. "Just got my new truck and the weekend off. Count me in for Devil's Lake if you still have room." By Friday afternoon, we were loaded up and heading north. Ethan rode shotgun, messing with my radio, while Tristan stretched out in the back with all our camping gear. The Tacoma handled the highway like a dream, and for the first time all summer, I felt like a normal teenager again. We stopped for gas about 20 miles from the lake at one of those combination gas stations that sells everything from live bait to lottery tickets. A park ranger was filling up his truck at the next pump over. He was older, maybe Dad's age, with weathered hands and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. "You boys headed up to Devil's Lake?" he asked, nodding toward our camping gear. "Yes, sir," I replied, topping off the tank. He walked over, his expression serious. "Stick to the marked trails. We've had 3 hikers go missing this summer. Last one was just 2 weeks ago." He handed me a flyer with photos of the missing people, a couple in their 20s and a solo hiker about our age. "If you see anything unusual, anything at all, you get back to your vehicle and drive straight to town." Inside, the gas station attendant, a thin man with nervous eyes, rang up our snacks and drinks. As we headed for the door, he muttered under his breath, "Things around Devil's Lake got a way of calling to folks, making them think they hear someone needing help out there in the trees. You boys be smart. Don't go chasing voices in the dark." We climbed back into the truck, and Tristan immediately started laughing. "Dude, did you see that guy's face? Like he actually believes in Bigfoot or something." "Small town weirdos," Ethan agreed, cranking up the music. Probably just trying to scare city kids. But as I pulled back onto the highway, I couldn't shake the image of that solo hiker's photo. He had looked exactly like he could have been one of us. The campground at Devil's Lake was eerily quiet when we arrived. For late August, I'd expected at least a few other campers, but the place was practically deserted. Only 2 other sites showed signs of recent use, and even those looked like they'd been abandoned mid-trip. Coolers left open, camping chairs still arranged around cold fire pits. "Where is everyone?" Ethan asked as we unloaded our gear, probably scared off by Ranger Rick and his missing hiker stories. Tristan laughed, but even he seemed to notice how our voices echoed strangely in the empty space. We set up camp near the water's edge, where the lake stretched out black and still under the gathering dusk. After we got the fire going and cooked some hot dogs, Tristan produced his secret weapon, a bottle of his dad's bourbon, stolen from the back of the liquor cabinet. To Nate's truck and our last weekend of freedom. He toasted, and we passed the bottle around, the whiskey burning our throats and making us brave. That's when we started trying to scare each other with stupid ghost stories and urban legends. But underneath our laughter, real sounds drifted from the tree line, low calls that could have been owls but lasted too long, and what sounded like footsteps circling just beyond the firelight. "You guys hear that?" Ethan whispered during a lull in our conversation. We all went quiet, listening. Something was definitely moving out there in the darkness, but every time we tried to pinpoint it, the sound seemed to shift, like it was deliberately staying just out of sight. "Probably just a deer," I said, but my voice cracked a little. We eventually crawled into our sleeping bags, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The first drops of rain started hitting our tent around 11, a soft pattering that quickly turned into a steady downpour. "Great," Ethan muttered from his sleeping bag. "So much for our last perfect weekend." The rain drumming on the tent roof reminded me of something, and before I could stop myself, I was talking. My Nana used to tell me this story when I was little. She'd always tell it when it rained like this. "What kind of story?" Tristan asked, his voice cutting through the darkness. "She called it, 'They Come When It Rains,' said her grandmother told it to her back in the old country." I paused, listening to the rain getting heavier. She claimed that when the rain falls hard enough, it wakes things up, old things that had been sleeping in the deep places, and they use the sound of the rain to mask their footsteps when they come looking for, well, for people. "That's creepy as hell, man," Ethan whispered. "Yeah. Well, she said they could mimic voices perfectly, call out for help, or pretend to be someone you know. But you could tell the difference if you listened carefully. Their voices never quite matched the rhythm of the rain." Thunder rolled across the lake, and we all went quiet for a moment. "Just stories," Tristan said, but his voice was smaller now. I must have dozed off sometime after midnight, because I woke to the sound of rustling. Tristan was getting up, probably heading off to pee. I heard his footsteps moving away from camp, toward the trees, barely audible over the rain. That was the last sound I heard from him. I woke up what felt like hours later, my bladder full and the rain still pounding the tent. But Tristan's sleeping bag was empty. I checked my phone. 3:47 a.m. He'd been gone for over 3 hours. "Ethan!" I whispered, shaking his shoulder. "Ethan, wake up!" "What?" he mumbled, barely opening his eyes. "Tristan's not back." "He's probably just taking a long piss, man. Go back to sleep." "Ethan, it's been over 3 hours. That got his attention. He sat up, suddenly alert, and looked over at the empty sleeping bag. "Tristan?" he called out. "Tristan!" Nothing but the sound of rain hitting the tent. We grabbed our flashlights and rain jackets, stepping out into the downpour. The campsite looked different in the darkness, smaller, more vulnerable. Our fire had died to barely glowing embers. "Tristan!" we both yelled, our voices swallowed by the storm. I swept my flashlight beam toward the trees, where I'd heard him walking. There, pressed into the muddy ground, were his boot prints leading away from the camp. We followed them to the edge of the tree line, where they suddenly stopped, not like he had turned around or stepped onto harder ground, but like he had just vanished mid-step. But that's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Next to Tristan's prints were others, larger, deeper, but with an odd shape I couldn't quite make out in the mud.
Help!
The voice came from somewhere deep in the woods.
Help me!
It was Tristan's voice. No doubt about it. Thank God, Ethan said, already moving toward the sound. Tristan, we're coming! But I grabbed his arm. Something was wrong. I listened to the voice calling out again, and that's when I heard it, or rather, didn't hear it. The voice wasn't matching the rhythm of the rain. It was perfectly clear, perfectly timed, like it was coming from somewhere the storm couldn't touch. That's not him, I whispered. Are you crazy? Of course it's him. Ethan yanked his arm free and started pushing through the wet branches toward the voice.
Tristan, keep yelling, we're coming.
Ethan, wait, I hissed. But he was already crashing through the underbrush, his flashlight beam dancing wildly ahead of him. The voice called out again, closer now.
Over here. I'm hurt.
Every instinct in my body was screaming that this was wrong. The voice was too perfect, too clear, like it was being projected rather than shouted by someone lost and scared in the woods. And it kept moving, first from the left, then straight ahead, then off to the right, always just far enough away to keep us following. I had no choice but to go after Ethan. The last thing I wanted was to lose both my friends to whatever was out there in the darkness. I plunged into the trees, branches whipping at my face, calling Ethan's name as quietly as I dared. Ethan, stop! Listen to me! But ahead of me, I could hear him crashing through the forest, chasing after that voice that sounded exactly like Tristan, but felt nothing like him at all. I finally caught up to Ethan in a small clearing about 50 yards from camp. He was standing frozen, his flashlight being fixed on something at the base of a massive oak. Tristan's clothes were scattered across the ground, his shirt hanging from a low branch, like he had been pulled right out of it, his jeans crumpled in the mud, one boot lying on its side. What the hell? Ethan whispered. The voice had stopped calling. The woods around us had gone completely silent, except for the rain. We need to go, I said, grabbing Ethan's arm. Right now. We can't just leave him. Look around, Ethan. Look at his clothes. Something took him, and it's still out here. That's when we heard it. Not Tristan's voice this time, but Ethan's own voice calling from somewhere behind us. Nate? Nate, where are you? I'm lost. Ethan's face went white. We both knew he was standing right next to me. We go back to the truck, I whispered. We drive to town and get help. That's the only way. We ran. Branches tore at our clothes and faces as we crashed back toward the campsite. Multiple voices now calling after us. Tristan asking why we were leaving him. Ethan begging for help. And something that might have been the missing hikers from the Ranger's flyer. We threw our sleeping bags and gear into the truck bed without bothering to break down the tent. As I fumbled with the keys, something that looked exactly like Tristan stepped out of the tree line. Guys, what's wrong? Why are you leaving? It asked, with perfect concern in its voice, but its eyes reflected my headlights like an animal's. I gunned the engine, but instead of shooting forward, the Tacoma lurched, and the wheels spun uselessly. The rain had turned the campground exit into a muddy bog, and my brand new truck was stuck fast. Come on, come on! I slammed it into reverse, then drive again, the engine whining as the tires found no purchase. The Tristan thing was walking toward us now, its movement wrong, kind of fluid but also kind of jerky, like it was floating and tripping just above the ground. Behind it, two other figures emerged from the woods. In the headlight glare, I could see they were completely naked, pale and glistening with rain, moving with that same unnatural gait. "Four-wheel drive!" Ethan whispered desperately. "Hit the four-wheel drive!" My hands were shaking as I found the four-wheel drive lever. The thing wearing Tristan's face was only 20 feet away now, and I could see that beneath the familiar features, something else was moving, like there was something crawling around underneath his skin. I engaged the four-wheel drive just as the creature broke into a run. Not a human run, but a loping, animalistic charge on all fours, despite looking exactly like our friend. The truck lurched forward, tires finally gripping but not fast enough. The Tristan thing launched itself onto the hood with inhuman strength, its naked body slamming against the windshield. Up close, I could see that Tristan's face was like a mask, stretched over something with teeth like an animal. It pressed its palms against the glass and opened its mouth impossibly wide and let out a shriek that sounded nothing like any earthly animal. I floored it, swerving hard to the left. The creature lost its grip and tumbled off the hood, rolling into the mud. In the rearview mirror, I saw it spring back to its feet immediately, watching us disappear into the night, along with the other two figures that had been closing in on the truck. The drive back to town was silent, except for Ethan's quiet crying. At the sheriff's station, they listened to our story with barely concealed skepticism. Search and rescue went out at dawn, but they only found what was left of our campsite and a few of Tristan's scattered clothes. No body, no blood, no sign of a struggle. Boys probably just had too much to drink and their friend wandered off. I heard one deputy say, "He'll turn up." But Tristan never turned up. Neither did Ethan, who disappeared from his bedroom window 3 nights later, while his parents slept downstairs. Now I drive past the community center every day on my way to school, and there they are, new missing person flyers taped to the bulletin board. Tristan's senior picture smiling down at me, Ethan's too. The official story is another hiker who goes missing by Devil's Lake, probably wandered off intoxicated and got lost in the woods. Some think Ethan left because he did something to Tristan and was consumed by guilt. The case is still open. Only I know the truth. And sometimes, when it rains hard enough, I swear I can hear them calling my name from the storm drains and the spaces between houses, their voices perfectly matching the rhythm of the rain, inviting me to come find them. But I remember what Nana used to say, and I know better than to listen. The October wind carried the smell of rot through Snowbird Forest, though whether it came from the carpet of decaying leaves or something deeper in the earth, nobody could say for certain. Lucy pressed her jacket closer to her chest as she followed the hiking trail, her boots crunching through the amber and crimson foliage. The late afternoon sun filtered weakly through the skeletal branches overhead, casting everything in shades of rust and shadow. She shouldn't have come alone. That's what her roommate, Tamara, had said that morning. Coffee mug paused halfway to her lips, eyes narrowed with concern. But Lucy had laughed it off. She had grown up in these woods, spent her childhood building forts and chasing salamanders through the underbrush. What did she have to fear from a place she knew by heart? That was before she found the shoe. It sat half buried in the soft earth just off the main trail, where Lucy had wandered to photograph a particularly grotesque fungus sprouting from a fallen oak. A sneaker, once white, now the color of old bone and streaked with mud that had dried to the consistency of clay. The laces were still tied in a careful double knot, the kind a parent might tie for a child. Lucy's breath caught in her throat. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling, and snapped a photo before she could think better of it. The flash seemed obscenely bright in the gloom of the forest. As she lowered the phone, something else caught her eye. Another shoe, this one further into the woods, barely visible beneath a pile of rotting leaves. This was wrong. This was very wrong. She should call someone. The police, maybe? But as she looked at her phone, she saw the familiar lack of signal bars. Of course. The forest had always been a dead zone for cell service. The trees too dense, the hollow too deep. She'd have to hike back to the trailhead, at least 20 minutes away. Lucy stood there, the wind picking up around her, sending dried leaves spiraling through the air like diseased butterflies. The rational part of her brain screamed to turn back, to run, to get help. But there was another part, quieter and more insistent, that needed to know, needed to understand why there were shoes out here, arranged like breadcrumbs leading deeper into the darkening woods. She followed them. The third shoe sat propped against a tree trunk, positioned upright as if someone had placed it there deliberately. The fourth was hanging from a low branch by its laces, turning slowly in the breeze. Each discovery sent ice through Lucy's veins, but she couldn't stop. The forest seemed to close in around her, the trees pressing closer, their branches intertwining overhead until they blocked out most of the remaining daylight. The trail of shoes led her to a part of snowbird forest she'd never seen before, though that seemed impossible. A hollow opened up before her, a depression in the earth where the trees grew twisted and wrong, their trunks bent at unnatural angles, as if recoiling from something buried beneath the soil. The air here was different, heavier, thick with the cloying sweetness of advanced decay that made her gag and press her sleeve over her nose and mouth. At the center of the hollow, partially covered by a thin layer of leaves and forest debris, was a mound of earth. It was roughly rectangular, about 5 feet long, and clearly not a natural feature of the landscape. Lucy's heart hammered against her ribs as she approached, her legs moving of their own accord, despite every instinct screaming at her to flee. The mound was a grave, an unmarked, hidden grave in the deepest part of Snowbird Forest. Lucy's hands shook as she brushed away some of the leaves with the toe of her boot, revealing disturbed earth beneath. How long had this been here? Weeks? Months? The soil looked relatively fresh, darker than the surrounding ground, not yet fully settled. She thought of all the missing person posters that had appeared around town over the years, the faces of young women smiling out from telephone poles and grocery store bulletin boards, faces that gradually faded as the weather wore away the paper and people's memories dimmed. A sound broke through the silence of the hollow, a soft rustling that wasn't quite wind. Lucy spun around, her pulse thundering in her ears. The twisted trees stood silent and still. Nothing moved in the gathering darkness between their trunks, but she had the overwhelming sensation of being watched, of eyes tracking her every movement from somewhere she couldn't see. She needed to leave, now. She needed to mark this spot somehow, get back to civilization, call the police. As she turned to orient herself, to find the way back to the trail, she realized with mounting horror that she couldn't remember which direction she'd come from. The hollow seemed to have no entrance, just a ring of bent and broken trees that all looked identical in the failing light. That's when she heard it. A sound, high and thin, and absolutely wrong in this dead place. Not quite a whimper, not quite a wheeze, like air escaping from a punctured lung, or the cry of something that no longer had the mechanism to make proper sounds. Lucy spun again, her scream catching in her throat. There was no one there, just the grave, the trees, the suffocating darkness pressing in from all sides. The sound came again, closer now, seeming to come from everywhere at once, a wet, rattling keen that made Lucy's skin crawl. It was followed by a scraping noise, nails on wood, or bone on stone, rhythmic and deliberate. Lucy's blood turned to ice water. The sounds were coming from beneath the earth. "Hello?" she called out, her voice cracking with terror, even as part of her mind screamed that she was a fool for announcing her presence. "Is someone there?" The temperature in the hollow plummeted, Lucy's breath now visible in great clouds of vapor. The scraping grew louder, more frantic, joined by a muffled thumping that could only be something striking the underside of the grave from below. The earth over the grave began to shift, slowly at first, just a gentle rising and falling, like something breathing beneath the soil. Then, more violently, dirt spraying up in handfuls, as something underneath began to claw its way to the surface. Lucy stood transfixed with terror, unable to move, unable to look away. A hand emerged first, gray-white and swollen with decay, the fingers bent at wrong angles, the nails completely gone, leaving only raw, bloody nail beds caked with dirt. Then an arm, clothed in the rotting remains of what might once have been a floral dress. The flesh had gone soft and loose, sloughing off in places to reveal the bone beneath. Lucy finally found the ability to move. She ran, crashing through the underbrush, branches tearing at her face and clothes. Behind her, she heard the wet, sucking sound of a body pulling itself from the earth, heard the dragging shuffle of something that should not be moving, giving chase. A wail erupted from whatever pursued her, wordless, agonized, the sound of a throat too ruined to form language. It rose and fell in terrible waves, punctuated by wet, gurgling gasps, and the clicking of a broken jaw, trying and failing to close properly. Lucy's lungs burned as she ran, her vision blurring with tears. She had no idea which direction she was heading, only knew she had to get away, had to escape this nightmare hollow and whatever horror she had awakened. The forest seemed to fight against her, roots rising up to trip her, branches reaching down to snag her hair and clothing. She burst through an especially dense thicket and found herself on a trail, not the main hiking path, but something smaller, overgrown, that looked like it hadn't been used in years. She followed it anyway, praying it would lead her out, lead her to safety, lead her anywhere but back to that hollow and its terrible occupant. The dragging, shuffling footsteps never fell behind. If anything, they seemed to be getting closer. That horrible keening continued, rising to shrieks that sounded almost like attempts at words, but never quite achieving them. Just raw, primal sounds of rage and loneliness and despair. Lucy's foot caught on an exposed root, and she went down hard, her palms scraping against rocks hidden beneath the leaves. She scrambled to her feet, but not before catching a glimpse of what pursued her. The girl, for it had clearly once been a girl, perhaps 14 or 15, lurched between the trees 20 yards back. Her face was a nightmare of mottled gray skin, stretched too tight over bone, one eye socket empty and weeping dark fluid, the other eye milky white and staring with terrible intensity. Her jaw hung at an unnatural angle, broken or dislocated, and when she opened her mouth, black beetles poured out, along with a sound like wind through a cracked flute. The creature's one remaining hand reached out toward Lucy, grasping, desperate. "I'm sorry," Lucy sobbed, running again. "I'm so sorry." The thing behind her shrieked again, a sound of pure anguish that echoed through the darkening woods. The trail finally opened up ahead, and Lucy recognized where she was. Just a quarter-mile from the main parking area. Civilization, safety, people. She put on a final burst of speed, her legs screaming in protest, her heart feeling like it might explode. She burst into the parking lot as full darkness fell, her car sitting alone under a sputtering streetlight. She fumbled with her keys, hands shaking so badly she could barely get them in the lock. As she finally yanked the door open and threw herself inside, she made the mistake of looking back at the tree line. The dead girl stood there, just visible in the shadows at the edge of the forest, watching, waiting. Her mouth worked soundlessly, jaw clicking with each attempt to speak, but only that awful whistling wheeze emerged. Lucy drove home well above the speed limit, tears streaming down her face, checking the rearview mirror compulsively for any sign of pursuit. When she finally reached her apartment, she locked every door and window, pulled all the curtains, and sat shaking on her couch with every light in the place blazing. She should call the police, should tell someone. But how could she explain what she had seen? They'd think she was crazy. And more terrifying, what if that thing, that poor dead girl, followed her? What if her terror brought that horror into her home, into her life forever? Her phone buzzed with a text from Tamara. "How was the hike?" Lucy stared at the message for a long moment. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trying to decide what to say, how to explain. That's when she noticed the notification from her laptop app. New photo uploaded to cloud storage. She opened it with trembling hands. It was the picture she had taken of the first shoe. But that wasn't what made her blood freeze. In the background, barely visible in the blur of the forest, was a shape. A figure standing among the trees. Even in the low resolution of the zoom, she could make out the floral dress, the unnatural angle of the head, the hollow darkness of those eyes. The dead girl had been watching her from the very beginning. Another notification popped up. A new photo. Though Lucy hadn't taken one, her own face, pale and terrified, but standing directly behind her, clearly visible in the image, was the corpse, so close that its ruined mouth was nearly touching Lucy's ear. The photo's timestamp was from 3 seconds ago. Lucy's apartment suddenly felt very cold. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. From somewhere in the darkness beyond her living room, from the bedroom or the bathroom, or maybe just from the shadows themselves, came a sound like nails on wood, like someone or something scratching to be let in. And then, soft as a whisper, but unmistakable, the wet, rattling wheeze, the sound of lungs long past their function, trying to draw breath. Lucy turned slowly, dreading what she would see. The hallway behind her couch stretched into darkness, the light from the living room seeming to stop at an invisible barrier. And there, just at the edge of where the light died, stood the dead girl. She took one dragging step forward into the light, then another. That clicking broken jaw worked uselessly, and a low moan escaped, frustrated, desperate. The creature's remaining hand stretched out toward Lucy, trembling. Lucy pressed herself back against the couch, frozen with terror. "What do you want? Please, I don't understand." The dead girl lurched closer and closer until Lucy could smell her, that sickly sweet reek of decomposition. The creature's cold, wet fingers wrapped around Lucy's wrist, and the world exploded. Images flooded Lucy's mind, not her own. A summer night, stars visible through the trees, a tent pitched in a clearing, a man's face, smiling, familiar, someone she trusted. Then hands around a throat. The desperate, futile struggle for air, the bite of a shovel striking earth, the weight of soil pressing down, down, down. The screaming that no one heard, the scratching at the wooden box lid until fingers broke and bled, the slow, horrible realization that no one was coming. Days of fading consciousness, the air running out, the crushing weight of abandonment, and then the years, the endless, empty years of being forgotten, of lying alone in the dark while the world went on above, while people walked over the grave and never knew, while search parties came and went, while hope died and took everything with it. Lucy saw the girl's name, felt it like a brand on her consciousness. Sadie, 15 years old, gone during a camping trip, never found. Her parents' grief, their eventual move away, their deaths, one after another, hearts broken by unanswered questions, and through it all, Sadie had remained, trapped in the earth, unable to rest, unable to let go, unable to make anyone understand. The vision stopped as suddenly as they had begun. Lucy collapsed to the floor, gasping, tears streaming down her face. The dead girl, Sadie, stood over her, her ruined face somehow conveying a desperate hope. She reached out again, more gently this time, and touched Lucy's forehead. More images. Sadie's family, her friends, the life she'd never gotten to live, the graduation she'd never attend, the love she'd never find, the children she'd never have, all of it stolen in one terrible night and buried in the dark of Snowbird Forest. And then, finally, Lucy understood what Sadie wanted, what she needed. To be found, to be remembered, to have someone know that she had existed, that she had mattered, that her absence had meant something. When Lucy opened her eyes, though she didn't remember closing them, morning light was streaming through the windows. She was lying on her couch, fully clothed, covered in dried mud and leaves. Her wrist bore the impression of fingers, dark bruises in the shape of a desperate grip. Her phone showed signs of missed calls and texts from Tamara, increasingly frantic. Lucy picked up the phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. "I need to report a crime," she said, her voice hoarse. "I found a grave in Snowbird Forest. I can take you to it." As she gave the dispatcher the details she could remember, the hollow, the twisted tree, the mound of disturbed earth, she felt a presence at the edge of her vision. She turned her head slowly to see Sadie's reflection in the darkened TV screen. But the dead girl was no longer reaching for her, no longer making those terrible sounds. She simply stood there, watching, waiting. 3 hours later, Lucy led a team of police officers and forensic investigators into the forest. It took time to find the hollow again, but Lucy's feet seemed to know the way, as if something was guiding her. When they finally broke through the underbrush and saw the twisted trees, the officers' expressions changed from skepticism to grim determination. They found Sadie's remains exactly where Lucy said they would be. The floral dress, now just tatters, the bones small and delicate, arranged in a fetal position, and most damning of all, evidence of who had put her there. The man who had volunteered with the search parties, who'd been trusted, who had hidden his crimes so well for 15 years. As the forensic team carefully excavated the grave, Lucy stood at the edge of the hollow. She could feel Sadie here, a cold presence at her shoulder, but no longer menacing, simply watching as her story finally came to light. The last thing Lucy remembered clearly was the lead investigator asking her a question. Then the world tilted sideways, and everything went dark. She woke in a hospital bed, fluorescent lights burning her eyes. Tamara sat beside her, relief flooding her face. "Oh, thank God. You collapsed at the scene. They said it was shock and exhaustion." Lucy nodded slowly, accepting the water Tamara offered, but something felt wrong. The water tasted strange, too metallic and cold. The hospital room seemed unfamiliar in a way that went beyond simply being in a hospital. And when she looked at Tamara, really looked at her, the name felt like a costume she was trying on, rather than something that belonged. Over the following days, the feeling grew worse. Her apartment didn't feel like home. She couldn't remember where she kept things, had to search for the light switches. Her favorite coffee tasted wrong. Her own reflection in the mirror seemed like a stranger's face, familiar, but not hers. She found herself standing in front of her closet one morning, staring at a floral dress she didn't remember owning. When had she bought that? The pattern seemed so familiar, so right somehow. That night, she dreamed of darkness and crushing weight, of scratching at wood until her fingers broke, of screaming with no one to hear. She dreamed of lying cold and forgotten while the world moved on above. She dreamed of parents who grieved, who searched, who eventually stopped looking. When she woke, she was standing in her living room in the dark, staring at a photograph on her phone. A picture of Sadie's family, smiling at a barbecue 15 years ago. Lucy didn't remember downloading it, didn't remember searching for it, but it felt like her family, like her memories. She looked down at her hands, young, living, warm, and flexed the fingers experimentally. Her lips curved into a smile she didn't quite control. Somewhere, deep in Snowbird Forest, in the dark hollow where twisted trees grew, fresh earth had been disturbed. If anyone had been there to listen, they might have heard something beneath the ground. A wet, rattling wheeze, a wordless keen, the desperate scratching of someone trying to claw their way to the surface, the sound of a girl who had finally been found, only to be forgotten all over again. And in a small apartment across town, the thing wearing Lucy's face stood at the window, looking out at the October night with eyes that had seen far too much darkness. Finally, she was alive again. She had a future ahead of her. All those years she had lost, she could have them back now. It had been so easy. Just a touch. Just a transfer of consciousness when Lucy's guard was down, when she was overwhelmed with visions and sympathy. A simple trade. Sadie smiled with Lucy's mouth and went to bed in Lucy's sheets and slept without nightmares for the first time in 15 years. And deep in the earth of Snowbird Forest, something that had once been Lucy screamed in the suffocating dark, just as Sarah had screamed before her. Trapped, buried, forgotten, waiting for someone to find where she lies. And so, dear listeners, we emerge from another dark corner of Carman's Crypt. But remember, the horrors you've heard tonight are merely echoes of the terrors that await in the shadows of your own mind. If you enjoyed your stay in the crypt, why not invite a friend to join us next week? After all, fear is best when shared. Leave a review if you dare, or share your own tales of terror on my social media. Who knows, your nightmares might just become my next story. Until next time, keep checking under your bed. And remember, in Carman's Crypt, every fear comes alive, and no one is truly safe. Sweet dreams, if you can still sleep at all.